WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. Not sure where you were when the WNST tech service, courtesy of Coons Ford Security Boulevard, came your way last week when Joe Flacco was dealt to the Denver Broncos for a mid-round pick. We'll learn more about that in the next couple of weeks, but we've been tearing it apart. I've been going out to the Mile High area. Lots of folks out there doing what we do in Baltimore and saying, how much gas does Joe Flacco have left in the tank? Shawn Drotar does sports radio, sports on the web, and all things digital at Mile High Sports. You can find him at S. Drotar, that's D-R-O-T-A-R, and milehighsports.com. He's one of our defending champions. I remember Elway being very sad, but Flacco going out there and doing some things to make Elway sad 6 years ago. This is an interesting turn of events, and I was wondering what Joe Flacco would look like in a Broncos jersey, Shawn, but I have no thought that it took you about 5 minutes to Photoshop that in, right?
Right, yeah. Not too hard to get that done in today's technology, no.
Thoughts? You were in the same position, like, oh, so we're dealing for Flacco, are we, for a fourth-round pick? How much money against the cap? What's the commitment here? What's the risk? If I'm a Broncos fan, I like the deal, and I'm a Ravens fan who's always been sort of a Joe supporter, who's a little sorry to see Joe go, but sort of I understand where we are in the life of a 34-year-old quarterback, right?
Yeah, I think so, and I think for the Broncos, this was an easy opportunity to upgrade their position for a minimal effort, really. The truth is they had that extra fourth-round pick that Demaryius Thomas traded from earlier in the season, so they could basically move that over or move a fourth-rounder over to Baltimore to obtain Flacco. The trick is the money, but Joe Flacco has no guaranteed money left on his contract, no big dead cap numbers left on his contract. And there's no question that even whatever he has left in the tank, it's better than what the Broncos got out of Case Keenum last year. So in that regard, from a football standpoint alone, it's a no-brainer, even if it's just an incremental improvement. The trick is what to do with the money, because Case Keenum has a $10 million dead cap number for the rest of 2019.
Well, and you start to talk about the dead money and the cap money, but I would think that Elway just said, I need a quarterback I can win that can take me to the playoffs, and was clearly a feeling that they didn't have the right guy last year. And this is always the problem when you don't have the guy and you don't have the number one pick, and when you use the number one pick, whether you get the guy or whether you don't get the guy, right, that what kind of a quarterback do you want? And I know there's been some question about Elway from the outside of what he did with Peyton Manning, how he let Osweiler get away, how he upgraded from Tebow when a lot of other people would have said that's good enough. Elway doesn't sleep when he doesn't have a quarterback that can win a Super Bowl, right?
No, he does not. Now, the catch, of course, is finding one. And Peyton Manning, you don't run into a situation. We think about the injury, of course, that led him away from Indianapolis, but those guys never hit the free agent market. That was a once-in-a-generation type of thing, and at the time, it was a bit of a risk that Manning was able to come back and play well like he did and ended up winning the Broncos a Super Bowl and getting them to 2. But those guys aren't available. That's an easy one. You don't need to scout a Peyton Manning. You know that if he's healthy, here's what he can do. In Joe Flacco's case, the difference is he's 34, but you know what he can do. You know he can still reach all the parts of the field. You know the experience is there. And the Broncos have a first-time head coach in Vic Fangio, guy who's familiar with Flacco, of course, based on his time in Baltimore under Brian Billick, and a first-time offensive coordinator in Rich Scangarello. So you want a quarterback who can pick that stuff up. He doesn't need to have anything explained to him. And for two first-timers in those positions, head coach and OC, that's going to be a big deal too.
He is Shawn Drotar. He does all things Mile High Sports out in Denver. Shocked by the Flacco thing? There was speculation in Atlanta. I think most of us believe Jacksonville might have been a landing spot. Miami, that was sort of early on as to who the coach is going to be and who was going to buy the groceries there. The Redskins, which we all dreaded, and we learned later on and after the weekend that maybe they were the second pick and they were the stalking horse in this case. But the Broncos stepped up early. It's not all that crazy a draft pick, and certainly to your point, not crazy money, although you account for the dead money. But were you surprised by this?
No, the only thing I was surprised by is that they struck this quickly to get the deal done. And I think that probably hints towards Elway's mentality of trying to find someone. You hit it on the head. He wants to go ahead and get back into those playoffs. He wants to do it quickly. He still has guys in his prime, and Von Miller and Chris Harris Jr., guys that are top 5 at their position in the entire NFL at worst, and they don't want to waste any more years of those primes. The trick is, of course, the AFC West, we saw this year. This is Patrick Mahomes' division for a while now. So the Chiefs are going to be very good again. The Chargers actually were very, very good and have a chance to be so again next year. So the Broncos are basically competing right now with the Raiders to see who's going to finish in third place, it looks like, barring something strange. But the hope is that Denver believes that they may be able to win maybe 3 or 4 other games last year if they had been able to get a bit closer, if they were able to be a bit more dangerous on offense. And that would have put them in the mix. That's where they think they are. But the Broncos are more than just a quarterback away. Their depth and some of the positions and the units that they have right now, specifically, and maybe most worrisome, the offensive line, Denver's a little further away than just now we picked up Joe Flacco. We're good enough to win 9-10 games and be in the mix. I think it's actually going to take them a little bit more than that in this offseason. The work for John Elway, I think, is just getting started.
Well, Shawn, this is what we talked about all week long at the Super Bowl a few weeks ago with, Ron Jaworski stopped by, Sal Palantonio, a lot of good football people. And I said, can the Ravens win with Joe Flacco? And they're, well, what are you surrounding him with? I mean, that's going to be the question, and I think that would be the question in Denver. I know when the deal got made, I'm making my own radio and doing my thing here, and I had people reaching to me and saying, hey, come on my radio station in Denver and tell me whether you think the Broncos can win with Flacco or not. I would say this. I think Flacco's a very capable quarterback. And to your point, still makes all the throws, never had wheels to begin with, has good smarts for the game. The knock on him here was body language and demeanor amongst fans. It was never from inside the locker room as to whether he was throwing to receivers on cold fields in March, literally, as to how that would help him. That was the sort of criticism he got here. But in retrospect, now that he's gone, in the days afterward, the fans were much more forgiving and memorable of his perfect run to a Super Bowl and the years we made the playoffs and saying, we don't know what we have in Lamar Jackson. Certainly in Joe Flacco, I know what you're getting. I don't know how close to broken down his back, his legs are, where he is physically, where he is emotionally or spiritually about picking up with his family, having $147 million in the bank now, right? I mean, a whole different kind of thing you're asking him to do as to where his fire is. But I know one thing, he was pretty emasculated around here, dude. He played well, he worked hard, he got hurt, he was never heard from again, not in a good way, not in a bad way, even when they were eliminated in a playoff game and folks thought that he would give them a better chance to win. He still sat at the end of the bench, and now he's gone forever. So I think there's plenty of people here that are going to be sort of closet Broncos fans to some degree.
Well, I mean, it's very easy to look back at someone who won you a Super Bowl and say, okay, are we sure we want to move away from this guy? So I get it. And you're right. You watched that playoff game, and there were people by the end of it. I wasn't really one of them, but maybe thought that, maybe Flacco was giving them the best chance to win. I understand why they committed to Lamar Jackson. I get it. I completely understand it. But if you're Denver, you look to Flacco, and there's no risk of that. It's not even impossible. This doesn't rule Denver out, who picks 10th in the draft, from selecting a quarterback. They really do love Drew Lock from Missouri. If he's there at 10, even with Flacco, I think there's interest in doing so. The trick is in Denver, even if they were to pick a Drew Lock, this isn't going to be Flacco versus Lock this year. The Broncos are simply not interested in starting a rookie quarterback. They would like to find their long-term guy. At 34, it's probably not Joe Flacco. But what is long-term in the NFL? 2 years? 3 years? That's the average career of an NFL player, and guys turn around so quickly in the NFL that what is long-term anymore? And for Denver, I think that's the way John Elway looks at it with quarterbacks. If I can get through this year and maybe next year, hey, we'll deal with the rest of it as it comes.
He is Shawn Drotar doing all things Mile High Sports and Radio. Little Avs, little Nuggets, even a little Rockies slid in there at Mile High Sports. You can find him at S. Drotar, that's Drotar, out in the Mile High City. So for Flacco and the moving parts around him and the offensive line, expectations for the offseason for Elway and what they're going to do, because the vaunted Von defense that was once there a few years ago, not what it once was. But can Joe Flacco win 10 games there next year?
Maybe. Again, we really have to see how so much of this offseason goes about. We know that they've got to trade Case Keenum. They owe him $18 million. There's $10 million in cap money. but you got to free up at least those 8 and maybe as much as 11, depending on who he gets traded to, depending on how the cap can change out.
By the way, who wants him bonus at this point, right?
At $18 million? I have no idea. That's a very interesting question, and the Broncos pretty much have to be willing to give him away, and I think they are. The question is who's desperate enough to get a guy that is a good teammate and not a bad player, but what Case Keenum is one of the league's best backups, not a starter. And I think that the teams now understand that after seeing this latest tryout at Denver, and that's going to be a tough pull for Denver. But that's step one. You have to free up $8 million in cap money at bare minimum if you're going to improve a lot of your positions. The offensive line, as I mentioned, needs improved. If they're going to bring back the one really good player on that line, center Matt Paradis has been a Pro Bowler before. He's a free agent, so you're going to have to pay him a lot more money if you're going to bring him back. The Broncos also have a bunch of other free agents. They've decided they're going to let Brandon Marshall, their middle linebacker, captain of the defense, they're going to let him walk via free agency. So you're right about that defense that Denver has. Yes, it was revitalized to a certain extent with Bradley Chubb, and they can get after the quarterback, but as a defense on the whole, they need another cornerback to start aside from Chris Harris. They're going to let Bradley Roby, a former first-round pick, probably test free agency at corner. So they're missing a starting corner. They're missing middle linebacker. They're missing a lot of positions on the defense that makes them important. And that offense, like I said, all of it comes down to the offensive line, and they'll still be running with some young wide receivers. And maybe, if they have to move away from players, they may even move away from Emmanuel Sanders.
Shawn, you going to Red Rocks this year for anything?
Oh, I'm sure.
Yeah, think of me when you're there.
Something, right?
Yeah, just think of me when you're there. All right. I mean, that would be my excuse to get out there and hit Red Rocks. I'm awaiting the schedule, but I don't think I'm going to make it out there this year. Although, maybe Flacco will stir things up and get me out there in January. Who knows, right?
Yeah, exactly. There's this time of the year you'll run into a bunch of athletes actually running up and down Red Rocks, getting their cardio in as a bit of a workout.
It's always a Rocky Mountain High out there, Shawn. Take care of yourself. Great to visit with you, and enjoy number 5 as he arrives out there in Denver. I sent him one text the minute he got traded. I said, just hit snooze AM and get the pineapple pancakes, and everything will be good about your trip out there. No problem.
Yeah, that's about right. I'm sure.
I told him to keep the kids away from the gummy bears, but that's a whole other conversation he's going to have with Dana. So, hey, great to have you on, Shawn. Thanks for coming on, bud.
Thank you.
Shawn Drotar joining us here from Mile High Sports. You can find him at milehighsports.com as well as at S. Drotar. That's Drotar out on Twitter. All of our WNST coverage brought to you by all of our sponsors. We got some amazing sponsors around here. The Modell Lyric right now. We got Kansas showing up there on March 1st. George Lopez, March 2nd. All tickets $29.50 for George Lopez. Learn more at modell-lyric.com. The Frank Zappa hologram thing on May 3rd. I don't know if you've made room for. I've not seen one of the hologram things yet. I think this is the one I'm going to do. Bill Maher's going to be there June 9th. The Doobie Brothers, I got Tom Johnston on this week. They're there April the 12th. JoJo Siwa, who joined us last year at the Super Bowl, who I'm sure your kids, especially if you had daughters, they love JoJo Siwa. She's going to be there June 12th. The Modell Lyric, modell-lyric.com. There's always magic at the Modell Lyric. Also, our friends at Lee Tessier, Baltimore's premier realty team, and the folks I'm trusting to sell my condo. You can learn more about what they do. They've been doing it for like 50 years now. I got a magazine cover they're on around here. Lee gave me. Reading up on all of the real estate changes, man. You just let Lee take care of it for you. That's what they do. Lee Tessier, that's TESSIER.com. Learn more about what they do. Also, Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast in the Kona coffee blend in the cup. Glad to get back from Atlanta where I can get the fried chicken from Royal Farms. You don't appreciate it till you leave. And the Western fries, you don't get Western fries anywhere but Royal Farms. So Royal Farms, real fresh, real fast. Make sure you're downloading the app, using that when you're pumping your gas. The rewards, get your coffee free. Get your fried chicken and your Western fries free. Makes them taste even better. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.